Okay, namaskar. Welcome to Kashmir Kitab. Today is 2nd of May, 2025, and we are going to start reading a new book. We finished reading Rachna ji's book, Chile Kalan. I'm just going to call it Chile Kalan, but it is called, what is it called? Chile Kalan Kangirth
Samavar
Samawar.
Kangartchile.
Samawar Kangirth Chile Kalan. Okay. म्हणजे हमेशा गसान और योर तो मगर मजा आ
Suarya.
so it was fun reading with her. It was really good, and it was like a warm hug, as I already said. So if anybody else wanted to probably note a few things, I know Vijayji wrote a review about her book, um, but
Yes,
anybody else, yeah, thanks a lot, Rachna ji, to
regards, yes.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so we are reading Subhashji's book. If everybody has it, does everyone have it? Whispers from the Past, Art and Oho, but asal class. Sare Chikita. Whispers from the Past, Art and Wisdom of Kashmir. Subhashji is with us. Thank you, Subhashji, for joining, and welcome back. As always, great to have you. Vinita Ashavan Patim. Kitabun Patim. Acha, came to Pormut. I think this book isn't, and when I just start reading, somehow I've just started speaking only in Kashmiri after this 5 o'clock session.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, yes. Good, good, good.
yeah, but okay, anyway, so switching gears because the book is in English. So, firstly, I wanted to note that. मेरे battery I wanted to note that there is a video that Subhaji sent me. I didn't get a chance to share it with you guys, but actually it is on. It's like two AIs having a conversation on Subhaji's book. It's so fun to watch, to hear, and they've generated like AI images, and the video goes. It's very fun, and I mean, it's on his book which he wrote in 2016, I believe, isn't it, Subhaji?
It's a much earlier book. It was written actually many, many years ago. And 2016, I did a new edition. But I think the background to this is that there are free apps available right now. You can give the app any material you want, a book or a long article. It will create it or it will convert it into a conversation between two people. It could just be voice conversation, or it could be conversation by two avatars, let's say a man and a woman, and they look very natural, and it's all free. In fact, this is going to change everything. This is going to change education, because you don't need. I was talking to a professor friend of mine here who put his papers into it, and it came up with a discussion of his papers, which he said was much better than what he could have done. And you don't need, humans are not a part of the game at all. Do you see that? And in fact,
So
this
Subhash,
one, yeah.
no, I was saying, Subhaji, it felt like we will be replaced by conversations by AI. And I'm like,
Absolutely.
that's a conversation I would love to hear, but I would not want to stop talking.
That is true. That is true. But yeah, I think the most interesting thing is that it can, summarize a lot of material for
Yes.
anyone. And
Yes.
and
20
I,
minute. It was a
yeah, in
20
20
minute
minutes,
video. I put it at 1.5x and I heard it all. It was so awesome.
in fact, I didn't know about it. I just accidentally hit upon it. And this guy, he's actually making money off it, because he has his own YouTube
App.
channel. So he takes books, he puts them through this app, and he creates this conversation. He puts them on his YouTube channel, and once the traffic on your YouTube channel is above a certain level, you get paid.
Correct. Yeah. I
And
mean, he
so,
doesn't have a lot of subscribers per se.
no,
So
no, not yet, not yet.
yeah, not yet. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
called JD's Eclectic Collection. If anybody is interested, JD's Eclectic Collection. So it's really fun. I thought it was really very it see, I think it also is that with AI, they kind of they're very eloquent because it's a very effective way of their of
But
expressing. There's no language does is not a barrier because they have processed it already, they know what they're saying. It's not processing in between while talking, and the language is not a barrier, and also the concept is like everything is so like clean. It's a very good, it's like a podcast, like an AI podcast, really.
yeah, I was about to say, does it make it convert it into a podcast with casual banter thrown in, or is it just
Yeah, yeah.
pure?
Casual
Hmm,
banter. Yeah, listen to it. I shared it on the group.
nice.
But anyway,
Because
so
you
I
you
thought that
have
was
you have people who give you book summaries, right? Like I follow a couple of them who read a book, give you a summary, and then an overall view of why you should read the book. But this is a much better way, like book
yeah, yeah. This is
summaries,
like this is
get
exactly like Kosher
abstract.
Kitab. It's
Mm,
exactly like Kosher Kitab videos. Exactly, except for they are better at the language and probably
mm.
more effective.
So the world
Anyway,
is changing right in front of our eyes,
no, I
changing
love
so
it.
completely. Yeah.
I
So
love it. The world is
Subhashji,
changing, but we'll never change.
Subhashji, quick question. Is it analyzing the existing book that you have already written in at a Vakri level or at a Pashanti level?
At a Pashyanti level,
Oh
because
wow.
it's looking at the general plan. So it's summarizing the whole thing. Pashyanti and Vaikari, right? Does anybody,
No,
do you want?
no, I think many
Gaze
people know,
and
but
I
it has.
I I can guess
looking and
what it
gazing.
means,
Yes.
but I don't know the other one.
Yeah, well, there are four levels of language. One is Vaikari, which is, words and so on. The second is Madhyama, which is middle. Above that is Pashyanti, where all the patterns appear to you. And above that is Paravak, which is, of course, beyond language. So this is a old theory from India, which is actually quite powerful, and and one can get lost in words, which is Vaikari, right? But what is powerful about LLMs? This is all large language models. What is powerful about LLMs is that they are able to, in many cases, I'm sure it doesn't work all the time. There in many cases they are able to get the general thread, the general idea. And in this particular book, the nature of physical reality, at that time when I wrote it, the basic thought in my mind was that no matter how you analyze anything, you will never be able to find the true answer to either your life or to outside world or to relationship. There's always some paradox. There is always some opposition. In fact, what is living as opposed to what is mechanical is that in what is living, there is a paradox which is woven into it, right? Even in relationships. So in other words, love is not total. There's also all of these things have to go with the opposite of that as well. I'm not talking necessarily of the term hate, but uh, the idea that possession should also be associated with letting go, right? And in fact, if one may push this further,
You're
if
talking about relativity almost.
no, no. If let me just push this further. If America and the West is going to hell, which I think in many ways the case could be made that it is going to hell, is because its leaders don't want to let go. If you want to only possess and possess and possess, one will meet a bad end. It's like people like Bill Gates and everybody else, they're still, okay, now you did computer virus, now you want to do the other virus, now you do this, then you go to Epstein's Island or this or that. There's no end. While in this amazing, extraordinary wisdom of India, what they said was, okay, do as much of ambition, as much of desire to possess, which is earth and calm. Calm is desire, have as much of calm. That's good. Earth, have as much of ambition, that's good. but let it be like a carriage on the
Balance it, balance.
yeah, on the guardrails of morality and letting go, of dharma and moksha. Moksha means to let go, or tyag. And the West doesn't know it. And therefore, it's my belief that things are only going to get worse. For example, do you know what's happening today in Germany? Because it's not only America, but Germany also. In Germany today, the foreign minister of Germany, I saw that tweet myself, says that they are seriously considering banning their most popular political party, AFD. Right now, it's most popular political party. So you can, if you don't use common sense, because common sense is really very uncommon, then you can end up doing things which are very harmful. And maybe Germany is going to do that. Britain is already
France has
doing
already
it.
done it. France has already done it.
They've already banned Marine Le Pen. In Britain, if you put the wrong meme on your Twitter feed, you can be jailed, right? And all that stuff. So Europe and even America was on the same path. Things have changed. We don't know for how long. So in any event, to come back, life is about oppositions, is about balance. While robots are not about balance, and that's the difference. And so that book that I wrote, The Nature of Physical Reality, at that time, this is a long time ago, before Amrita was born, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know when you're born. So you also have results in mathematics and logic, which are called, the incompleteness theorem, that if you have a logic, everything is logical. There are certain statements which you can neither prove or disprove. It's called the Gödel's incompleteness theorem. In physics and all sciences, there is a shadowy realm where things are not clear. And a lot of people in the West right now, because of the success of computers, don't realize it. So this is why people are quite happy to cede decision-making to computers. But computers really lack something. They lack something which is paradoxical. And this guy using LLM, whatever app it is, was able to capture that. I was myself surprised when I heard it. I was surprised. I said I couldn't say it as well as he was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fewer words.
In fewer words. Right.
Okay. So so that book is called Nature. Catch that now.
The Nature of Physical Reality.
Yeah, The Nature of Physical Reality. I thought
I downloaded it long time ago. I mean, I don't even remember now, but I downloaded it like a decade ago.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's available for free on Kindle download. It's for free. Yeah.
If you have unlimited Kindle, I think.
Unlimited Kindle, yeah, it's free.
Yeah. Okay, so we are reading this book now, Whispers from the Past. Welcome, Simaj. It's been a while, actually. Okay, so what I realized is ki as to Purmut, so we have read the paper of the Kashmir that was, and I thought that
was Kashmir. The wonder that was Kashmir.
The wonder that was Kashmir. Yes. What did I say? The Kashmir that was
something.
The Kashmir that.
Oh, that is Avanti's book. That is Avanti's book. The
Kashmir that was Yarbal, right? That is somebody's book.
You're quite sure.
No, we read Avanti's book, which is called The Kashmir That Was, actually. We've read it in this book club.
Right.
So I got confused with that. Okay, The Wonder That Was Kashmir, which we read before The Kashmir That Was. It was a paper, and we kind of were really, really astonished that, oh my God, ye bhi Kashmir mein hua tha, wo bhi hua tha. Everything, originated from Kashmir. And also I discovered there in that paper that Henze Vanvun actually is based on Samved. Okay, so this book, however, I think it does touch upon like all of it, but in addition, I feel like there are other chapters that are not covered in the paper, right? So tell us a little bit about what made you write this book and what we should look forward to?
Well, that particular article, which is freely available on academia, called The Wonder That Was Kashmir, was a general overview, right? Culture and this and that. But it left out many things. For example, Katha Sarit Sagar, which is one of the greatest story books ever written, or Yoga Vasishta, which I've always said is the greatest novel that is ever written. It's the most incredible book. There's nothing which comes close to it. Or in Kashmir, we don't normally know that the Charak family or the Charak tradition is normally associated with Kashmir, right? Which is one of the medical sciences of Ayurveda. And let's see, and sort of, there's so many texts, well, Shiva Sutras, etc., and then some kings and so on. The grammar, Patanjali.
Yeah, Patanjali, I saw that.
Yeah, now that's very important because everybody knows the Yoga Sutras, right? But
we've heard of it. We don't know that.
Patanjali, according to Indian tradition, did three things. One is Yoga Sutra, and he lived about 150 BCE. Then he did Mahabhashya, which is the commentary on Panini's grammar. And it's a huge commentary, and according to a lot of people, that's what created the prestige of Sanskrit. This commentary.
That in Sanskrit, no? Basics, starting.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mahabhashya. And it also tells you a lot about the tradition and culture. For example, when you read Mahabhashya, you also know that there was indeed images which were worshipped, because there are some people, you go to a history department, they'll say, well, temples were created only about 500 CE. But that's not true, because even in Panini, there is mention of images. So that, and then Vishnu Dharmotar Puran. Yeah, one should mention that. That's a Puran which was written in Kashmir, which also has an extensive section or chapters on art. So, that's extremely important. There was a lot of art which was done in Kashmir, and that's also because of the temples. Music, dance, drama were associated with temples, right? Even in South India, everywhere. And when the temples were taken over by the government in South India, then of course all of that died, but certain families kept it alive. Then they also banned the tradition of Devadasis, right? But then some people got together in the early 19th century or 20th century, and they recreated it. They made it okay for girls from middle class to learn Bharatanatyam. Before that, it was only, if you dedicated yourself to the temple that you did it. So now
there was like temple dancers,
temple dancers, and they're very powerful.
Yes,
extremely wealthy, powerful, whatever. So apparently there was that in Kashmir, but in Kashmir that tradition died after 1330s. So there was painting. And now, how do you get an idea of painting? All the paintings in Kashmir were destroyed, but there are some which have survived. There is a monastery between Leh and Kargil. It's called Alchi Monastery. So on the walls, there are some paintings which are apparently done by Kashmiris. So, and there are some examples of that in the book. And then there are certain books from Gilgit where the cover, there is a Kashmiri painting. And how do you know it's a Kashmiri painting? Well, but partly from the character, the Kashmiri looks and so on. So these are not Ladakhi looks or Gilgit looks. And also from the great texts on the art of painting that we have from Kashmir, as in Vishnu Dharmotar Puran. And of course, the greatest book of musicology was also done by a Kashmiri, which is Sharang Dev. Sarang Dev or Sharang Dev's Sangeet Ratnakar. He was a Kashmiri who went to West India and lived there. So this is the starting of modern musical tradition that we have. Both Karnataka and Hindustani go back to Sangeet Ratnakar.
It's all eclipsed now. इधर अभी कुछ भी नहीं है. Nobody knows it. It's very strange.
जो लोग म्यूजिक करते हैं वो पढ़ते हैं.
Very few. General public तो they are not aware.
जानती है. फिर दूसरी बात यह है कि the very first book of art from India is Natya Shastra, Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra.
Yes.
Amazing, 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 amazing. Because it also has a science, not only of music, also of gesture. How do you communicate emotion and all of that stuff? And Bharat Muni speaks of dancers, of musicians who were called Bhand. And we had those Bhand Pathar. Pathar means Patra, right? We have that tradition alive in Kashmir even now. So there are some people, some Kashmiri scholars and others who say that maybe Bharat Muni was from Kashmir as well. So,
No, I on the point of Band Pathar, actually Aarti has raised her hand.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we'll have a speak and then I can speak. Okay.
Yeah, since we were talking about paintings, I love the cover page, and I feel I'm the girl in the orange Ferran. So I want to know more how this happened, and I looked at what every individual is doing. So it's definitely something that a lot of thought has been put into. Like someone's offering the water to the sun god, I believe someone's doing something. And so how did it all come about?
Okay.
And also, what's written on the bottom left? Was it just some script, or it just happened to be that way?
Okay. Now, I didn't do the cover. That was the publisher. And I think the publisher gave me a choice of 2 designs. I picked this one. And that could be in Sharda. This could be an old painting. I have no idea. This could be a painting which was embedded in the top thing. So the book designer did that.
I thought you were going to say this is AI generated, like you put in a couple.
No. Well, people in India, all these book designers and others do use very advanced tools. They are as good as anybody.
I really love how it's like a cloth being lifted and you're peeking into the past, and the shape of that cloth is like a mountain, like the gap actually.
Right. So it could be an old painting. I don't know. I don't remember having seen it, but I would imagine so. It's an existing painting, which the book designer then covered it with this, covering of this intended effect, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful. So on the topic of Band Pathar is what we did with Himal Negrai, and and I actually at the end of it I did give like a little bit of Natya Shastra quiz to the audience at the end of the play. I don't know if any all of you watched it. But yeah, I gave a speech on the rasas and stuff. The thing is that while I was directing the play, I was like, okay, I feel it should be done a certain way. But then I did go into Natya Shastra, the book itself. I downloaded it and I was reading it and it was so interesting to see. It actually breaks down every movement, like even eye movement.
Absolutely.
Hand, when to breathe also, like it's so like like they break down everything to get that particular emotion out. I think we should read it at some point for sure, and it's always in back of my mind that we should read it in the book club, obviously, because all of you are kind of like I think you're all artists in some or the other way. Vijayji.
There was one person, Subhashji, that you talked about Natya Shastra, and then we also have Bharat Muni's, I mentioned Abhinav Gupta's Abhinav Bharati. And I had heard, I don't know whether this is true, but I wanted your comments, that Natya Shastra was very difficult for ordinary man or women. And that's why it did not really become so popular. And Abhinav Gupta made it much simpler. And then it became popular after he did that. Is that true, or is that like something?
I don't know. Sometimes we make these statements just to, when we are focusing on something, we say, yeah, this is everything. We do that, and just to highlight something, we say, yeah, without this, it wouldn't have taken the path it has. I don't know the history, but I do know that after Natya Shastra, you had another famous book which was written in Rajasthan called Dattilam in the 6th century. That's on music. And of course, Abhinav Gupta wrote on so many different subjects, which is very, very impressive. And we shouldn't forget that Natya Shastra is also called the Pancham Veda, the 5th Veda. Now, I've written a lot on the Natya Shastra in my book, which appeared last year, called Eternal Bharat. The subtitle of that book is Truth, Meaning, and Beauty. Eternal Bharat is a lot about Vedanta and about Natya Shastra and music and all that stuff. So I've been sort of wrapped up in this as someone who does both science and the arts, sort of. I'm very intrigued by what are the connections. And I believe, in contrast to what Western philosophers say, that these are two different worlds, the world of art, humanities, and the world of science. I believe that ultimately the inspiration comes from the same source, from the Devi. And I totally get it, and I can talk about it endlessly, that how do you connect to the Devi within you, which is, we are all the same. The Devi is within each one of us. But if only we were to listen to her, and that's, we don't. Often we don't. And if you only were to listen to her, she shows us new ways of looking at things.
Yeah.
See, for example,
because creativity is also in science as well as in arts.
Yeah. No, so creativity is not from your mind, because your mind is all boxed in. It's like logic, right? During the day, you're looking around, everything is at their place. This building, that building, air, water, etc. Creativity comes in as in, the great Mandukya Upanishad. And in that book, I have a whole discussion of Mandukya Upanishad. But let me make it personal, and let me talk more about this creativity. The goddess speaking. Last year, I wrote a email to Amrita about certain Kashmiri words. That here, aren't these words very strange because they sound similar to words in European languages, right? And I'm sure all of you must have given thought to it. For example, the word amar in Kashmiri is like amore in Italian and Spanish for love. And there are many others. So we talked about it. And then it sort of brewed in my mind. And I've written a book, which is probably my best book ever. It's going to come out maybe next week. And what I did there was I was able to find a connection, and it's all linguistics, connection between Kashmiri as playing a very central role, connection between Sanskrit and European languages, which people were not aware of. And I can tell you briefly what it is. European languages are all what are called SVO. SVO means subject, verb, object. I went there. I, subject, went is verb, right? There is object. All European languages are SVO. All Indian languages and Persian are SOV. Subject, object, verb. Main wahan gaya. Right? The only language in India which is SVO is Kashmiri. How will we say that?
Bugos.
Stop it! Stop it! Don't help him! No, don't help him. What is this?
मैं क्या बात है? अच्छा, okay, I can do it. Don't help me. मैं क्या बात है? I ate food, right? Kashmiri is the only language, and there is a lot of vocabulary. So the case I made is that in Sanskrit, of course, you have free order, but the conventional order in Sanskrit is also SOV. Ramaha Tatra Gachati, right? Gachati, right.
Gachati.
So because Kashmir was in the mountains, certain archaic features of languages survived only in Kashmir. And everywhere else, the SOV idea prevailed. And then, of course, I have example of many, many words, not just amor or amar or amore, but many other words which I've listed out there. And that makes a case then uh, that Kashmir played a central role in the development and evolution of languages.
Okay, perfect. So let's go to the hands raised by both Rajendra. So I'm just going
Yeah,
on
Rajendra ji, and both the
RRs.
Rajenders. Yeah.
First RR and then RT.
Aras.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
RRR.
So I just wanted to comment on what Vijay ji had asked about Natya Shastra, whether Abhinav Gupta, what exactly was his role, and I haven't read either Abhinav Gupta but I had listened to one on Abhinav Jayanti. There was one classical dancer who had given a speech on Abhinav Gupta's contribution to Natya Shastra, and she was saying that the Natya Shastra by itself would be unreadable without his commentary, without Abhinava Gupta's commentary, because he has done such a detailed explanation of all the mudras, all the things which have now become part of the whole system. So she says, it's really, without that, you would be just unable to understand it. That was her.
Like Raj Tarangani without Rakesh ji and Aarti ji.
Right. Exactly.
Just
I don't know how far that's true, but that's what I had heard. So.
Rajendra Kaulji.
I mean, in terms of the Sanskrit, when you were talking of the syntax and the structure of the languages, Sanskrit is probably the only language. Probably, I'm saying because obviously I don't know all the languages in the world, where the speech is syntax independent. The order of words have no role to play in the formation of a sentence. That is mainly because of the Karak system. Every word is assigned a position in the meaning and its purpose. And once you do that, you can say, I read book, I book read, book read I. You can say in any format, any other format you can think of. But the Sanskrit meaning does not change. It's invariable because syntax has no role. There are few exceptions. It's not that there are no exceptions. There are very few exceptions, but mostly it is a syntax independent. Any order you want to use it, because every word has a defined role in here.
No, absolutely right. Excepting that there was a convention. In Sanskrit, you're absolutely right. The order can be free because there are particles, grammatical particles attached to every word, and therefore it doesn't really matter. That grammatical particle tells you what function that word serves. But if you look at standard books like the prose books from ancient times, you'll find that a certain conventional order was used, even for Sanskrit, which was SOV, just like Hindi or Farsi or Telugu or Tamil or whatever. All Indian languages are SOV. But you're right, I agree. Sanskrit itself is free. Yeah.
It's independent of syntax.
Right.
So we'll come to Vijayji, and I want to just say ki, at some point I realized or we found out that there's a research on Kashmir as a language by Germans, because they found that German grammar and Kashmiri grammar was similar. I guess it's probably because of the same, that the structure is the same. I don't know why there are a lot of German researchers who study Sanskrit.
I wasn't aware of it. I
Yeah,
wasn't
maybe
aware
this
of
is
German and Kashmiri. I wasn't aware of that. Because Kashmiri, there is only the dictionary by Grierson. And
yeah, but there are
Grierson,
research papers. There are research papers on by Germans
that might be true.
And I might be totally wrong, and I might be thinking of Sanskrit and not Kashmiri, but somehow I'm thinking it's Kashmiri and not Sanskrit. One is that. Another thing, what I wanted to say is that I have read. I was reading Bharat Muni's translated Natya Shastra and it seemed pretty understandable. So what I'm trying to understand here is, what is the Abhinav Gupta's book called again?
Abhinav Bharati.
Bharati.
Abhinav Bharati. So
That is a
I'll download that.
commentary. Now that's not as long because Natya Shastra is huge.
Yeah.
And for example, if you look at my book, Eternal Bharat, that also gives a summary in maybe 40 pages of Natya Shastra. So
So
a lot of people do that.
just wanted to try to just put things in perspective. Like, it's not super. So
No,
this is talking about the gentle dance. This should be the procedure in performing the uh, Asarita songs. Now consider all the relating to
yeah,
the
it's
adoration of God. I mean,
straightforward
it's
because
very straightforward.
it is very straightforward. I've read it from cover to cover many times because I in 19 no not in 19 in 2001 a very famous Filipino musicologist of Chinese origin, he invited me. He says we are doing a big conference in Manila on music, and would you participate? And of course, as a keynote speaker, I told him, I said, I don't know anything about music at all. And that was true. I was being truly honest. He says, well, but you have worked on the Vedas, etc. So why don't you come? And I looked him up. He's a very, very famous guy. He passed away, and I looked him up, and I found that he was born the same year as my father. And I thought, well, there is something deeper there. I should go. So I went there. And before going there, so I studied the Natya Shastra. And I wrote a paper called Early Indian Music, which I'll be happy to share with you after this, where I took certain aspects of Natya Shastra on music and summarized that. And I met this guy and other musicologists. Everybody was a musicologist in Manila at that particular conference, and it was very, very interesting what they were looking at, because there is some linkage between music and behavior as well. Music is abstract, and music and mathematics, a lot of people have noted that. Some people who are good at mathematics are also good at music. But something also more fundamental, that there are certain patterns in music which are universal. And why might they be universal? So those are the questions that arise. So, but to go back to what Amrita was saying, Natya Shastra is very straightforward, as are almost all the Indian Shastras. You read the Vishnu Dharmottar Puran or any of the Puranas, they're just stories, or they are descriptive, that do this, or this is what the musician does, or this is what the dancer does, or these are the different mudras, or these are sthai mudras and the other ones. So it's all descriptive.
So it's certainly what I found that it wasn't like very story like, but it was more like rule number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 type of a thing.
Descriptive,
yeah,
right,
very
right, absolutely.
Vijayji, you have raised your
Actually, I had two things. One is, in 2009 or 2010, after 30 years, I went to Kashmir, and I went to the remote villages. And one of the villages I went to is Chandragom. And it is, at that time, I think it still is the same. There were 8 Kashmiri Pandit families who are still living there at that time. And I think even now, they're still there. And then later on, I found that Chandragom was named after some sage Chandra, who apparently was a grammatician and in the lineage of like Panini or something. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, see, there are two great traditions. One is Panini and Patanjali. The other is Chandra. There were these opposite ones, and it comes up in books on grammar that that's the Chandra grammar. Grammar related to the tradition of Chandra, and all of these things were very important. For many centuries there was this contest between the Buddhists and the Hindus, or the Vedantists, or the Vedas. And I just this morning I came across this statement, probably on X, how Faiyan mentions, when Faiyan was in India, he mentions a word fight between a Brahmin and a Buddhist. The Brahmin was teaching Panini, and the Buddhists are telling this student, don't listen to what this Brahmin is telling you. Panini will lock you into, into stuff which is not very helpful at all. And maybe there is a deeper meaning there. And the deeper meaning is that when Kashmiris left Kashmir, or some of them, they're scholars, they went to Central Asia. And my new book is on that. It's called The Saka Language and Sanskrit. So in Central Asia, the language that was one of the languages that was spoken was called the Saka language. And it was influenced a lot by Sanskrit, but that Sanskrit did not hold strictly to Paninian or Patanjali grammar. So they broke the rules. And I think there is some sense to it. To learn Panini is so tough. If you want to do it as some Arya Samajis do, you start off at the age of 6, and maybe by 16 or 20, you still haven't done it fully. You've lost the best years of your life just to memorizing of certain rules. And maybe sometimes you have to move on. And so to that extent, I'm sort of sympathetic. And I've been on many committees in India where a lot of money has been asked for, that we want to create a AI system based on Panini, language processing. And of course, you finally go along with it and you say, okay, how does it hurt? Somebody's going to get money and they'll do some Sanskrit. But in reality, in the back of my heart, I'm not that sympathetic.
This is being recorded.
Yeah, recorded. I'm not that sympathetic. I'll tell you why. How did America become so successful at AI? They didn't use grammar. They just used language, whole large language models, millions and millions of sentences of grammar. How does a young child learn language? By example, right? You don't have to teach them grammar. I'm not saying I'm against grammar.
That's exactly, you're right. The frequency and the volume of it makes it, and that's why we do Praddo Kashur.
Praddo Kashur is a great idea. Praddo Kashur is a great idea. And I think that's what this is what Kashmiri scholars of the first millennium BC, and they have completely transformed China. I quote this in which book? I forget.
Saka.
Perhaps in The Idea of India. I quote the leading American scholar of Chinese, who's a professor at Pennsylvania, who mentions that 35,000 words of Mandarin are derived from Sanskrit. And it's huge, and Indians don't know it. And how did this happen? Because just as last 100 years, it's all been about coming to America, right? America is this golden country for people from China and India. It's to come to America. For 1,000 years, that's 10 times 12 times more than 80, right? For 1,000 years, the big game in the world was to translate Sanskrit texts into Chinese. So the Chinese sent their people to India to learn Sanskrit, and Kashmiris played a very important role, and people haven't really done enough work on that. They sent these Kashmiri, like Kumar Jeev, right? Mm-hmm. So these Kashmiris went out there, and Kumar Jeev really created classical Mahayana tradition, and he gave it a Vedantic twist, because the way he translated Lotus, the Pundarik Sutra, the Lotus Sutra, he sort of equated Shunyata to Purnata. In the Upanishads, you have both. Neti means Shunyata, Brahmasmi means Purnata. So I think the great thing about Kashmiri aesthetics was to walk this fine line between opposites, which is where meaning is, which is where wisdom is. Mm-hmm. And the problem with a lot of people, a lot of scholars of Hinduism or Indian history in the plains of India or even in Europe was not to catch that middle ground. and go extreme on one side or to the other side. And that's why they don't get it, in my view.
Subhash, just a corollary to what you were saying about AI and how you are kind of looking at all these projects for using Sanskrit and stuff, but maybe not the language, but this concept of Pashanti and Madhyama and Vaikari, those concepts probably would be helpful for AI.
Oh, absolutely. You know, in Eternal Bharat, in my book, what I do is, where do these concepts come from? You go back and you look at Sukshma Sharir. You know, you have Sthul Sharir, the body, the Sukshma Sharir, which is the mind and the intellect. And then you have the Karan Sharir, which is above the mind. And each, you know, we have the same mind. All of us, mind is based on training, right? Mind is intellect. You learn grammar, you learn arithmetic, you learn history, this or that, or your memory is good, assuming there's nothing wrong with your memory. So that's what your memory, that's what your mind is. But above that sits your true personality, which is hidden, which is in a black box. And that's your Karan Sharir. That's what you're born with. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's where this Pashyanti or Para, that's the domain of the Karan Sharir. Because mind by itself has no meaning. It's only an instrument. It's called Antahakaran, right? A computer also has a mind. It does everything. It does processing. LLM does all the processing, and it generates data, right? Or generates sentences, but no meaning. And so if you go either to these three bodies, which all of us have, or if you go to the 5 koshas that you have in the Upanishads, you know, the Annamaya kosha, then the Pranamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha, and then finally the Anandamaya kosha. So that's where, and that's where Kashmir Shaivism comes in. Kashmir Shaivism gives you a way to open up into your Karan Sharir. And if you are able to open up into your Karan Sharir, it gives you many different techniques, right? Like Spanda, like Call, or like Krama, or like, Pratibhigya, right? These are all different methods. Or you do other kinds of sadhana, or you do music, or you do this, or you do that. But ultimately, how to do that? And that's when, when they say, Mukti mein chahta hu, Mukti mein chahati hu, ya Mukti mein chahta hu, what does it really mean? What it means is, it doesn't mean, and that's where we Indians lost it. We said कि मुक्ति होती है जब मृत्यु होती है, right? उसके बाद मुक्ति होती है. मुक्ति इस जीवन में होती है. मुक्ति तब होती है when you get separated from this chain of karma, where you are a prisoner, where you are pashu. जो karmic chain है, that's the pashu chain. And why? Because you don't have access to your Karan Sharir.
AI
şunu kinite. AI şu bilkul pashu.
How will it inform?
Emotionless.
It won't.
That is Subhashji's stand on AI is it can never be conscious. Subodhji has raised his hand.
Yeah, it will never be conscious. I even proved a mathematical theorem on it. But Subodhji.
Subhashji, namaskar. This is all a very illuminating conversation. I think Vijayji was who brought up the fact that Kashmiri has been, our culture, language has been taken into what is now China. But I've just only read the introduction to the book, The Art and Wisdom of Kashmir. What I started to get really interested in was the invasions that happened. So we exported culture, language, and then of course, the invaders from China and the Mongols, the Turks, they imported the killings and the depopulation in Kashmir. So what I'm getting interested in, just looking at the introduction so far, is how did the population survive? Obviously, there were multiple instances of, and you use the word there, depopulation. Is there more in this book or other sources, maybe other writings you have or other sources to look at?
I don't know. I don't have any, but I remember when I was a child, and I think this is a part of our folklore, that when Sikandar Butchikan's time, only 11 families survived. So my father told me that the Kaks were one of those 11. I don't know if that's true or not, but it is indeed true that in Raj Tarangani, there is a mention of a Kak general. So maybe the Kak families existed, the Kak Kutumb existed then. Now, of course, there were only 11. It's a folklore. It doesn't mean necessarily just 11. And then most of them fled. But then Zainul Abidin time, many came back. And then when they fled, they probably fled to Kishtwar, they fled to Jammu, and go all over South India. The Saraswats, who are so brilliant and who have done so well, they claim they are from Kashmir, like the Pais and many others. So Kashmir spread everywhere. But I think ultimately this idea of Kashmir being central can also be problematic. And I'll tell you in what sense. As I was growing up in Kashmir, and I'm as Kashmiri as anybody can imagine. I grew up in small villages. We used to sit down, in the evening, and people would drop in and they'd tell these endless stories. And we are wearing ferans and kangadis, and we listen to these stories. What I discovered at that time as a child was maybe there were two things that came in. Where we went away from the power of Kashmir. One was, directness and brevity. You see that in Utpal Dev, see that in Abhinav Gupta and all other, or the stories, how beautifully they are written out in Katha Sarit Sagar or Panchtantra and so on. That was one, that we started telling stories without focus. That was one of the problems. The other was, if you start taking it too seriously, that you, meaning anybody, that one is the greatest, or one's culture is the greatest, that becomes a prison. You remain great only so long as in your heart you believe that whatever you know is not yours, it just came to you from the goddess, because ultimately goddess means the Atma. It comes from somewhere. And I just, let me complete my thought. What may complete my thought? The problem that happened was that Kashmiris became too ahankari. Kashmiris have just too much of ego. And I think that's a personality flaw.
So so that is why we didn't survive till we didn't. But Subodhji was like, how did we survive this much? Because that's also a very valid question. People kept on coming back, but we never became extinct.
No, per se. We didn't. See, for example, when you read Bahar,
you're on mute.
Yeah. What is it called? Baharistan Shahi. You find how many Janeus were burned and how many were slaughtered when that guy Hamdani or Iraqi came. So at least 4 big genocides. 4. Now people say 7, maybe 4 big ones historically. And I think Kashmiris continue to be the elite. It's like there is a Pakistani scholar who recently wrote somewhere that one reason
Pakistanis are banned now.
Yeah, one reason that Pakistan is a failed state, because they had this community of Khatris or Baniyas who excelled at what they did, because a lot of trade in Central Asia was done by these Khatris. They all left Pakistan. So Pakistan is missing a group of people who in their genes have this genius for trade. It's like the Agarwals and the Marwadis in India. You look at, there are 120 Indian billionaires, of whom 110 are Agarwals, are the Marwadis from Rajasthan and so on, right?
Yes.
Somehow, even the founder of Flipkart or this or that, so somehow it persists, the epigenome. A part of the genetic inheritance that each one of us has is in the epigenome. So we have that, but it needs to be properly steered. And so Kashmiris were pushed out, but we continued to be the elite, even during the Afghan times, which was the worst period in Kashmiri history, 1757 to 1817, till Birbal Dhar and the Sikhs came, right? Even during that time, there were some Kashmiri Pandits who were governors, and in fact, one of the Afghan governors took this Kashmiri Pandit and he became the prime minister in the Afghan court. And then, of course, he was killed 4 or 5 years later. So ultimately, if you have special skills, you look at Ranjit Singh, his chief minister was a Kashmiri Pandit, right? Now, Kashmiri Pandits can also take bizarre positions, like Mr. Rahul Gandhi's. I'm sorry to reveal my political preference, like some of Rahul Gandhi's positions, but all that can happen.
I think I have a couple of observations, Subhash, what you said. For one thing, I think nobody in Kashmir, in my view, should ever think that we were elites. We were not elites. The reason we survived because there was Sanatan Dharma and Hindus all over India. That's how we survived, not because we were elites. So we should not ever think that we were elites. There were a lot of elites all over India, and we were not anything unique. The only thing we had going for it, Kashmir, which is really something we lost completely in last few hundred years, is that our contribution to the Hindu thought and Hindu philosophy is enormous, is very disproportionate to what rest of the India contributed. But it was not because the Kashmiri Hindus were particularly brilliant, but because every Hindu who had any thoughtful thing to contribute and who had to contribute ideas to the Hindu thought, they would come to Kashmir. For example, Abhinav's ancestors came from Kannauj. Vasugupta and they came from Kannauj. So they were not originally Kashmiris, but they got assimilated into it. And this is a story for a lot of. So there used to be a lot of migration of Brahmins all over India, even without Buddh Shikan. We didn't need a Buddh Shikan for them to migrate. People used to migrate all over India. But I think this notion, only reason we should be proud of being Kashmiri is what the Kashmir has contributed to the whole thought of Indian ethos. But we have lost it over the last few hundred years, and right now we really don't have much to be proud of. And all the developments, everything that happened in Kashmir happened not in Kashmiri language, mind it. It happened in Sanskrit. Everything, any thought, any literature, any developments, anything that came out of Kashmir was in Sanskrit language. And when we lost touch with that language, we lost touch with everything else, the whole history. And that's why we have to, for us to get back to that history, we have to know the language first. So
yes, Rajendraji, totally agree. I just want to add, totally agree. Perfect. Whatever you said. Just want to add a couple of points. What happened after 1330s was that we were separated from our arts because our temples were destroyed. So we had to do it surreptitiously. We couldn't do music, or we did it,
उसी पे चोट की गई, उसी पे चोट की
and
गई.
without the arts, your mind cannot flower. So for 700 years, we could not do music. And the greatest texts in the music, in Chitrakala, in all other arts came from Kashmir. It's true. And look at Kashmiri architecture. It's very spare. It's very direct, Martand or the other that we have. So I think that happened. But I think in even the last 400-500 years, I think there's a book on music which was written by two Kachru brothers in Farsi. Kashmiri, they're still doing something or the other. I forget the name of that book. And now Vijay Dharji has a point, has raised his hand.
Yeah, no, actually, I just thought that before I say my point, I just want to say 3 words. I think our survival was a miracle. And that happened because of Ranjit Singh, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, Balbir Dar, and all of that, and Dogras and all that. So Birbardar and Dogras and all that. So I think it was a miracle. But My question was actually, Subhashji,
and Tegh Bahadur.
Correct. So, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say 3 words. It was a miracle. But my question was actually, now we have touched almost all subjects, but we've not touched chemistry. So I think I mentioned it before.
Atas na tur. Atas na exothermic reaction katsan ke.
I was listening to some chemistry professor from MIT, and he was giving a lecture on batteries, technology, chemistries and stuff. And then he talked about Mendeleev's periodic table, and he talked about Ika something and something, and I immediately, it was just for 5 seconds that he said that, and then he moved on. And it intrigued me. I looked for it, and I found your paper on Mendeleev's periodic table and how he got inspiration. But I don't know what exactly happened there and how that correlation happened and how did he get inspiration from Panini.
Okay, that's a very interesting story because Professor Kiparsky, Paul Kiparsky, who's a professor at Stanford, he's also written on it and he has also quoted my article on it. What happened was in the 1860s, when people were doing chemistry, they didn't know where the elements, what structure there was. And Mendeleev, at that time, he was in St. Petersburg, Russia. And Russia was a great center of Sanskrit scholarship at that time. So he would talk to his colleagues who would say, hey, look, this language, Sanskrit, it has a periodic table of letters. The Aksharmala, the Akshar is a periodic table. You have Kavarga and Chavarga and Tavarga and Tavarga and so on. So that sort of stuck in his mind, and the idea came to him, is it possible that the elements of nature, of chemistry, also belong to a table? Because nobody had this clue. In the Western tradition, everything is linear. You look at the English alphabet, it's linear, A, B, C, all the way to Z or Z, right? Or Arabic, Aleph, Be, Pe, and so on, it's also linear. While Sanskrit is periodic, it's two-dimensional. So he looked at this and he tried to fit them into a two-dimensional table.
Wait, how is Sanskrit two-dimensional?
Don't you have A, I, E, and then K, K, G, G, that's one line, Ch, Ch, J, J, another line, Ch, Ch,
I see.
Consonants and
yeah. So Mendeleev tried to put it, the elements that he knew, and then he discovered that there were some missing holes in that two-dimensional table. So he wrote a paper, he's saying, this is one, there should be a element here, and he gave it the name Eka something, Eka for 1, and Dvi for 2, 3 for 3. And then finally they were discovered, and he had made a prediction, and that's how he became famous. And so Sanskrit has, and if no non-Kashmiri is listening, then we could, since Mahabhashya was written by Kashmiri, we could take some chauvinistic pride in this influence on grammar, influence on chemistry.
But I think, Subhashji, I think in praising Mahabhashya, which I have a lot of respect for, because we do read in our Sanskrit literature and Sanskrit grammar classes. But the genius is of Panini.
Of course.
The Panini's genius is unparalleled in this world. Think of the person, how much of information he had it in his head that he could come up with these aphorisms, which is less than 4,000 aphorisms. And there's not a single vowel in each of those sutras that he created that you can spare. It's such a bare minimum sutra that he created, these 3,900 some sutras. And the genius is that it explains for all eventualities of all the grammatical rules, and you want to find something. And not only that, the Maheshwar Sutrani, for example, he came up with. Right. Maheshwar Sutrani. Of course, he ascribes it to Maheshwar, but the Maheshwar Sutrani is actually a tremendous key to how these alphabets are arranged and how they should be grouped together. And then come up with the idea of pratyahar. Okay, now this becomes an, and this becomes ik, and this becomes rik, like that. I mean, it's a genius.
Well,
Patanjali wrote thousands of pages of Mahabhashya on Panini's grammar. So I think we have to appreciate when we praise Mahabhasha, as much as I have a lot of respect and regard for Patanjali. He has done a wonderful. You cannot read grammar without reading Mahabhasha.
Of course,
Panini grammar was
Panini. Western scholars have said that Panini was probably the greatest intellectual, most brilliant man who's ever lived.
Absolutely.
And a personal note, I got, people would ask me or might ask me, what's wrong with you? You're a computer scientist. What is it that you're doing? How did you, what happened? What happened to you? What's wrong with you? So Panini plays a role there. It was the 1980s, and I was doing AI, and I was looking at questions of machine translation. And then suddenly I remembered that when I was a kid, my father used to talk to me about Panini's grammar. So I did some research, I read it up, and then I was astonished by the claims of book writers saying that at Panini's time, there was no writing in India. And I could not believe that. If there's no writing, how could he write those 3,992 rules? How would he remember them, right? Impossible. I can't remember telephone numbers, 10-digit telephone numbers. I do it once or twice and it goes away, right? How did he remember?
That's the bane of modern age.
But even then, so I told myself I must find out what is the history of Indian ideas. So I went back, I started off with the Vedas, I looked at all the Aranyakas, the Brahmanas, the Sutras. That's how all my Sanskrit journey began. Panini is the beginning of that.
That's awesome. To answer like how, which Subodhji asked, why did we survive and how did we survive? I think, in my opinion, the answer is in this book's introduction. It says Kashmir's geographical location partly explains its cultural history.
Wow.
It may be the natural beauty and the temperate climate that were conducive to its traditions in the arts, sciences, literature, painting, drama, and dance. So I think, we since the civilization was, and hamare purvaj, they were so well established that they were in a zone ki let's do something more beyond just surviving or living, to get into the arts. And that's when you get into the arts, that's when you get into creativity, when all of your needs are met in the Maslow's triangle. You're on the top, really, because all of your needs are met. You are a flourishing civilization. I mean, that's my interpretation of why we survived.
Once the invasion happened, after that, they eliminated and so many other places which were also
Correct.
similarly isolated. They were completely eliminated within 20 years. Entire civilization were dead. But that's why I say that our survival was a miracle.
I should joke. Actually, we had a foundation to fall back on, which never went away because it was part of our epigenome, like Subhash said. And somehow I always repeat this, that our spiritual inclinations are not only because of our practice of spirituality, but also because of the practice of the spirituality that our ancestors did, that are part of our body's memory. Okay, what were you saying?
I think one of the things we should remember that, like Subhash said, that Kashmir did suffer a lot of attacks, and Vijayji said, but those attacks also happened in the rest of northern India. That's why I think I haven't read it anywhere, but my thinking is that the reason the temples in northern India are so dirty and filthy is because there was a systematic discrimination of Aurangzeb. Actually, there was a temple built in Bundelkhand for 3 million rupees at that time. And Aurangzeb said that you build this temple, so you're going to have to erase it completely. And the temple was erased after having been completed. And because of this invasion from foreign countries, that's why the temples on north side, northern India, are so filthy and dirty. And that also includes the temples in Kashmir also were suffered the same fate, basically. But in south, which remained relatively aloof from these attacks, that you find temples are still there, grand temples, and the cleanliness and respect people have for the temples is enormous.
Yeah, certainly. Because when there is invasion, there certainly is some things that get affected, and South India was kind of saved, and thankfully so, because of the geography and the geography of Kashmir. In a way, also promoted creativity in those days before the invasions. But because we are such an ancient civilization, it's some things are still in our genes that we cannot shake off, I guess.
Atan fok diwan bachai. Atan fok diwan.
Vijayji has very truly said that our survival is a miracle. That is true. And now we have to just try to
Value it because
the
it is such
legacy
a
and
miracle.
do the nice things
And
in writings and all that.
yeah, absolutely. Rajendra ji, RR.
Yeah, I had a question, and this was something which I had a discussion with a Punjabi friend of mine, and he asked me a question which I really had no answer for. He says, in whole of North India, everybody was invaded by the Muslims, right? And so there was a lot of conversion that took place. How come Kashmir got so much converted compared to Punjab? Punjab has still maintained a Hindu overall population, whereas Kashmir completely was finished literally, right? There's only 11 families left. So the question was, what happened to, why were the Kashmiris specifically, brought down so bad?
इसमें तलवार था
But Punjab में भी
तलवार था ते मैं तलवार था
Lalita Aditya also tha वहाँ
Manchuna
पर.
mazhabas mas talwar tha वही.
Lalita Aditya थे पंतवातन हाथन वरी अंतिम दूर.
अच्छा
Lalita Aditya was पातन
I don't that's my
Manchuna
assumption, but Subhash ji can answer.
Manchuna पांच कक्के काडकल तात्मंचित करपान थाविन तिमन must. Tawai sitim
But that
survive very
will
well.
be late.
But look at Hindus in Afghanistan. They are totally gone. Or northwest India, or look at Swat and Chitral. Swat was a great center of Shaivite worship also. There is no
and
Hindu
Buddhism. Yeah.
Yeah,
Buddhism
and
later.
there is also this thing that we had somewhere to go. We had somewhere to go, like south of Kashmir, where we became Saraswat Brahmins.
Right.
But many people who were geographically locked in areas that they couldn't go to a safer place, they became extinct, and that's
True. I think that's a very important point.
And I think the only, Amrita ji, only thing I will say, one thing very quite different from what you are saying is that when we think of Kashmiri Hindus and why Kashmiris survived, we should not think of it as an isolated group of people. We are part of the greater Sanatan Dharma, and whatever happened to Sanatan Dharma, rest of India, particularly North, also happened in Kashmir.
yeah,
It
absolutely.
did not happen in Afghanistan.
Yeah, it happened all over. And ultimately, because the Sanatan thinking is so scientific overall, not just Kashmir, everywhere, the Sanatan thing is so scientific that there was no other choice but to survive through the.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it did not survive. It did not survive in Afghanistan.
But the answer was given by Amrita. If you're landlocked.
Even US didn't survive in Afghanistan.
That's true.
And it is totally because of the geography. It really is. Okay, so it is 7:20, but I wanted to just, unless somebody else has anything to share. Okay, I wanted to just go through the names of the chapters, because I wanted to just give a gist of what we are going to read about in this book. So there is introduction, which actually gives all the dates and all the important people. It's kind of puts everything in one place. And when I was reading it, I was like, here comes another BCE, CE, guys, be confused. The Most High Bhagwan, I especially put table, two-dimensional table. So I think we need to do that exercise the next time, next session. What we'll do is we'll do a session on, anybody can say any topic, and we'll place it in time linearly, and we can just keep on adding, and we'll make a document so that it kind of sticks, because every time I forget, acha Abhinav Guptosa Amut Kotarani bro kin Kotarani pat kin sauce Arnimal bro Amut kin sauce. So I always get like, so we'll try to keep this, and we can try to keep adding to it, because somehow I always get confused ki acha Sharda Peeth was built this time, but no, it was not built by this time. It was built by Kushan Empire, let's say. That was a confusion. Like, was it Ashoka? Was it Kushan? And then we went into one whole discussion on when was Sharda Peeth made, because somebody said it was Lalitaditya, and that was totally different. So we need to like really get that down, and I think this chapter reminded me of doing that, and we'll probably do that in next session. Today we had really good and interesting conversation. I didn't want to interrupt that. Okay, so that is introduction. Second is Charaka and Ayurveda. Third is drama and the arts. Fourth is the Panchatantra. Fifth is Patanjali, sage of grammar and yoga. Kumarajiva and the middle way. What does that mean? We'll find out, I guess. Seventh is cosmology and
Madhyama Buddhism. Madhyama, the middle way.
Oh, I see. Okay, seventh is cosmology and consciousness, the Yoga Vasishtha. Eighth is Lalitaditya and his campaigns. Ninth is Vasugupta and the Shiva Sutras. 10th is the age of Avanti Varman. 11th is Abhinav Gupta on the Bhagavad Gita. 12th is Somadeva and stories from the Katha Sarit Sagar. And I know Subhaji is a big fan of Katha Sarit Sagar, and he keeps saying we should read. And so, we'll get an intro of that in there.
I do have a whole series of that Katha Sarit Saga.
Ekdo karo. 13th is representations of divinity. 14th is art and music. And 15th is the epilogue. So I'm really looking forward to this. Somehow I had an impression that the paper that we read, The Wonder That Was Kashmir, was somehow super similar to this. It is, but it is not. There is more to this book. So I'm really happy that we're doing this. So thanks, Subhaji, for writing it. Again, Subhaji is coming out with a new book next week, he's saying, but we are still reading a book that he wrote 1 year ago, even though...
His publishing speed is...
You need many lifetimes to read his books.
When is that book coming out, the new one?
That is, I did the proofs last week. So it could be as early as next week or maybe 2 weeks from now. And I must tell you something interesting about that book. The foreword to that book has been written by the famous Lokesh Chandra. Have you heard of him? The famous scholar. He is 97 years old. Oh. He is the author of 400 books. And he is the leading Indian scholar on Central Asia. And he still works 4 hours a day. That's what I was told.
Where is he located? The reason I asked that question, Subhashji, was I was trying to figure out how many days we have before your new book comes out to finish this book.
Okay, since you mentioned this, I
will... Super nice AI aspect. He's writing much.
Since Rajendra ji asked me this question, let me, for the sake of transparency, tell you that I will probably have 2 more books come out this year. One of them is called The Fate of the Solar System, the Future of the Solar System. It's on space travel. We are hoping that Elon Musk will give an endorsement, but we haven't yet received it. And I said we because my co-author is a famous Greek-American scholar named Menas Kafatos.
Oh, he's a Kashmir Shaivism guy also.
Yeah, he loves Kashmir Shaivism. Yeah. And then the next book after that, which I just finished, is called The E-Dimensional Universe. It's on Science, and I just sent it out yesterday to the world's #1 scientific publisher. I won't name it, and I don't want to be disappointed. But so that both those books should be coming out this year.
Has E-Dimensionality gone through peer review successfully?
I have had 20 papers published through peer review in journal articles. So this book is just getting these papers together. So everything has been peer reviewed. And right now one would say that it's in the fringes. if it should be accepted by the mainstream, that could be one of the biggest thing in science in the last 300 years. Because what I'm saying is that space is not three-dimensional. Space is just shy of three-dimensional. It's 2.718 dimensional.
Which is the E.
And 18 or 20 papers have all been published. Peer-reviewed, you can Google it, it'll come up.
Yeah, he had shared with us. It was on Kashmir Kitab also. We had shared the link to that.
I thought when Subhash said mention Elon Musk, I thought his book was released in the Blue Space Mission.
No, but I'll tell you, the Elon Musk connection is very, very funny.
You must nominate Kashmiris for that if that's something in the plan.
No, well, I'll tell you, first of all, I'll give you the Elon connection. There are two Elon connections. One is that there's a book written in 1950 or so by Vernon von Braun. He was a German space scientist who brought space engineering to America, and then he became one of the heads of NASA. So he wrote a novel before he was mainstreamed into NASA. He wrote a novel about man going to Mars. And in that novel, humans reach Mars and they discover that Mars is already populated, excepting that their cities are underground. And they have a administration, they have a governance, and the leader of their governance is called Elon. Now, we don't know whether his father gave Elon this name because of this story, but as you know, Elon Musk's main driver in his life is a mission to Mars. Okay, now it so happens that Elon's lawyer and my son's lawyer are the same individual. In Miami. His name is Alex. He's a Greek guy. So I told my son, can you pass my manuscript on to Elon so that Elon would give us a endorsement? Because should Elon give us an endorsement, this book would be the bestseller that one can imagine. But that has not yet happened. I still have time. We haven't yet chosen the publisher.
Cool. Okay, Niharika has raised her hand. And Sunita ji, welcome to Kashmir Kitab. She just joined today. She's a new member. You're on mute if you're trying to speak, but Niharika, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to request Subhash. I mean, you've written so many books, Subhash, but could you also think of writing some books for kids? I mean, this would be such an inspiration for the next generation. When I think of what you have done, I mean, it's probably something very, very inspiring for generations to come, and not just our kids, but for generations to come. And how can we kind of bring these learnings in those early formative years, right? So that's just a request.
Such a KP mom you've become. Okay, let's go.
Well, I haven't. But let me do a plug for my wife, Naomi. Her book is going to book is going to come out next week. It's called, it's a takeoff on a Panchatantra story. And the book is called The Mugger and the Bandar Boy and Other Stories.
Nice.
So, and it's sort of inspirational also. So there's so many books. I've been trying indirectly because I don't speak Kashmiri. I'll tell you a secret. The reason why I'm not fluent at
that
Kashmiri,
is no secret.
No, but listen to it. The reason why I'm not fluent at Kashmiri is because I was so shy as a kid that I never opened my mouth. Of course, I know Kashmiri perfectly. So I tried to attempt to speak Kashmiri only when I was much older. So because of this, I never asked people directly to do this or that, but I've been trying to put indirect pressure on Amrita also. Please write this or that, but I have not been able to persuade her.
यहाँ पे पढ़ा नहीं जा रहा, लिखा कहाँ से जाएगा?
And all of you, in other words, all of you Anybody, all of you, please. Yeah, this is great
I wrote
stuff.
a Kashmiri rap song, which actually Sunita Dharji's son will put music to Ronak. So
Lovely.
it'll come out very soon. It came out as a part of a Kashmiri learning Kashmiri exercise, so it'll be fun. But Naomi is Subhash ji's wife, Naomi Kak. She was at the Lit Fest as well last year, and she did write a book on for her granddaughter called Naughty Knots, for her granddaughter who was like, for the hair, when you like kind of try to comb her hair and there are like knots. So it's a very nice it was a very nice book. I thought it was her first book, so I'm really happy that she's writing another one, and hopefully I'll see
It's
her
all
at the Lit
done. It's
Fest.
all done. It's been proofread. The cover is
Okay.
all decided. It's probably out tomorrow, next week. So next week.
Perfect. Oh,
Yeah.
Congratulations to her. And I hope she's coming to the Lit Fest again then this year. That'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like there was somebody who wanted to say something, and I cut
Sorry,
them
I
off.
just want to say one more point. I mean, at least what would be nice is to at least know what are the books you have read, Subhashji, so that I can kind of start buying some of those. I'm being very honest.
Read or written?
No, the ones that you had read in those early years, because
She
you have
wants,
taught, right?
she wants
Oh,
her kid
when
to
I was
have
a
your dreams.
How
when I was
can
a
the
kid.
next generation learn from
Niharika really wants to push her kids.
Okay, when I was a kid, what was I reading?
Yes, exactly. In those
Okay, when I was a kid, I grew up, I just listening to people. I
Listen
would
to
sit
stories.
because I was so quiet and I would never speak. In fact, this is a true story. I mentioned this in my autobiography. It's a true story. My
You have an
autobiography,
autobiography?
of course.
Autobiography?
Yeah. Many years ago. I
Oh,
forget
you
the
need-
title. If you go to Amazon, you'll find it. But
What?
it's a true story. I was 7 years old, and my father was posted in Udhampur. And so we lived in one of those small houses, 1 or 2 rooms, and a courtyard. And then, and there were 5 children. Then my father moved to another place. And so there was this courtyard, and the landlord lived in 2 or 3 rooms on this side, and we lived on 2 or 3 rooms on this side, right? So the courtyard was common. So we were there for 3 months, and then the landlord called my father. There were 5 children, and 2 of them were 2 year and less than 1 year. So the landlord called my father. He says, we like you. You're a nice Kashmiri guy, but I feel very sorry for you that your second son is mute. He had never heard me.
At least he did not say your second son is moot. So,
I had
There's
not
this-
uttered a sound in those 3 months to anybody. So that's one way. I was just observing things. But when I was in middle school or high school, we were in Anantnag, and Anantnag had a town area committee, and I discovered that they had a library. So during those years, under a tree, I read up every book that you can imagine. I know as much of European literature as anybody. You can go to an English scholar or a German scholar. I read all the French literature, German, English, Russian, history, Churchill, whatever. Tremendous. That's all I did. I just read everything that came to my.
that's awesome.
And-
So we are going to read the autobiography for sure, Niharika. The thing is that if your children are not mute, I think they will not do too much. That's what I understand.
I can tell
Because
you.
I think even Shashi Tharoor mentioned it recently. Somebody asked him like, "Oh, how is your vocabulary so good?" And then he said that, "Well, I was very shy and I had asthma, so I couldn't go out play sports and I wouldn't talk to anybody. So I only read, and therefore, I mean, of course, he didn't turn out to be as good, but at least he has a good vocabulary."
Okay, the title of my autobiography is "The Circle of Memory."
Yeah, I shared it on the group already.
Yeah. I'm just looking at it. And I must also tell you, since you mentioned Shari Tharoor, when I was a professor at IIT Delhi, I was a very young professor, 23 years old. I had done my PhD. And I was and people used to from or Delhi University, etc. They used to call me, "Hey, can you be a judge at this uh, inter-college debating tournament or championship?" And in one of those, Shashi Tharoor was a speaker. So I've been his judge.
Good. Good to know. Did
You
you
were
judge
also
him
a
well?
professor at that time, by the way, Subhash. You were my professor. You taught me passive network or active network synthesis.
Oh, in IIT
In
Delhi?
IIT Delhi.
And I probably didn't even know the subject. I don't know, because in American universities, I was a very popular in American universities. I've been an extremely popular professor, but you know why? I would just tell them stories.
Oh my God!
Little bit of technical stuff, but mostly stories.
You were also very popular in IIT Delhi when I was there.
They did themselves.
Subhash is giving cancer vibes.
And one of my other students was Rakesh.
Cancer.
Huh?
Oh, Rakesh, you also your student.
Cancer vibes, yes.
Rakesh was my student.
Rakesh Kaul.
Rakesh Kaul was my student, and there were 30 students in the graduating class, and they had to do a graduating thesis. And there were 30 professors. So all the 30 of them came to me. They said, "We want to write your thesis with me. So they all did their thesis with me, including Rakesh. And why did they want to do it with me? Because I said, "Do whatever you want." And Rakesh did a very fine one. So Rakesh is my student.
Oh, awesome. So while you all turn on your cameras for a picture, I just wanted to share with Niharika that what we have learned in Kashmir Kitab is that storytelling is very powerful. And as Subhash obviously mentioned, that he just would sit down with Kangri and Ferran and listen to stories told by people around him because he was an introvert. But that is something. Hi, Bhavu.
Hello.
So happy to see you through like a camera and a camera, man. What is this?
She called me and I plugged her into the session. So
Oh, that's a good one. Look at
the baby, Niharika. Show how like the youngest kid of the book club. All right, let's take a picture. Smile, please. Could you video on, please, and show your books if you have it. Mira,
so cute. Niharika, little one.
She's waving her hand.
All right. So next week we'll do first and second chapter. We'll do the chronology, which Aarti has already taken up, because guess what? She's this Raj Tarangani kind of a freak. And I was not surprised that she started it off. But we put it in a Google Doc so that we can make edits easily. But thank you for this session. As usual, thank you, Subhashji, for illuminating, like Subhoji used that word, us, as always. Thanks everyone for joining. It's always amazing to talk rubbish.
Let me add a couple of sentences to that. Life, as Amrita correctly said, is all about stories, and all of you should be writing stories in your own way, and that's wonderful. So if I can inspire you to write stories, that'll be great. And extra pressure on Amrita, of course.
Let's go.
I will write. You know how I sing when it just happens to me. I will write when it happens to me, and I have written. But Sunita ji, I wanted to just extend my welcome to you to the book club. You are on mute. She is actually Ronak's mom. I think Ronak has not joined the book club ever, but he's been part of it, and he's brought books from me from Jammu.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
So she's visiting. So the parents are visiting. Actually, they're in the Bay Area. So hopefully she will be a regular until she is around this.
Yeah, I'll definitely try to be. Try to be.
Perfect. Okay. See you next week with the chapter 1 and 2 of Arts and Wisdom of Kashmir.
So chapter 1 is introduction. Chapter 2 and 3, right? Charak in drum.
No, 1 to 2 करो ना, क्या इसकी 1 का कोरविन डिस्कस में दो मैंने 1 करो इस थोड़ा थोड़ा करो इस थोड़ा हम जुमले में जाएंगे. And I don't feel like saying bye today, but I don't know why that is. But yeah, I feel like everyone's very happy and nice. Any last thoughts, Subhash ji? Just because I don't feel like ending this session.
You know, these sessions, whatever you call them, hot air, whatever, can be very illuminating, because when one is just talking, just like that, suddenly you say things which you didn't even know that you knew.
Yeah, and you register.
Yeah, in fact, that's how a lot of creativity also happens. You either are dreaming, because in dreaming you're not in control, or you're in a group, you're chatting, and you're not really in control unless there is a bossy guy, boss man or boss girl who's controlling the conversation. Because otherwise, if everybody's thinking,
I have a feeling I know this person.
so they can be fantastic, and they can be really, they can change things. So great stuff.
All right. With that, have a great weekend.
Bye.
See you next
Bye.
week. See you tomorrow. Pagach Batwar, Pagach Aarti sun session, correct?
Anamika kari lead.
Pagach
Ashkaran,
Panchastavi, Ashkaran side set the many time. Go East Coast time to side the subas.
Oh, morning, very early. Achha, okay.
Okay, man, kya karo? To chupe sarni. Okay, namaskar everyone.
Namaskar everybody. Namaskar everybody.
Bye bye.